Welcome. Well, let's see. Ahmad, you are at Amazon delivering outcomes for advertisers. You've been at Uber, head of an ad tech. You were at Meta, messenger business and analytics. You're at Google Display Network and Yahoo Analytic products. You've done the tour of all the important companies in the Valley, and you're bringing your experience to your present Amazon, essentially working on advertising and matching advertising. You were at CMU as an MS in software engineering and management, and you came from Sharif.
Yep.
And Behnam, you are at Pinterest. You're a VP of monetization, machine language engineering and data science. You were at Twitter, VP of engineering and consulting there. And you were a CTO at Netseer. PhD at UCLA and EE from Sharif. I said this just as a list so we can get to the interesting part. The first interesting part that struck me when we talked briefly a couple of days ago, you guys share a lot of your background. You went to the same high school. You were friends from high school. Tell us about it. Which high school was it, and what mean things did you do in the high school?
Yeah, so we went to Al-Mehelli, middle school and high school together.
We had one of your classmates over here last time.
I think we have a bunch of people from Al-Mehelli here.
How many people are from Al-Mehelli? Oh,
Or Farzanagan.
Or
Farzanagan. Okay, we got 7. Hey, that's remarkable.
Yeah, so we used to go to school together every day, actually, but like with our parents. Played basketball together. What else?
He was better. So
he's taller.
We went to the same school, and we didn't have kind of shuttle to school. So every day, one of the parents would take kids to school. So imagine a parent, 2 kids in front, 3 kids in the back, and then parents would just rotate. So I got to know his dad, and sometimes his brother would actually drive with us, and then he would go drop him off to daycare. Yeah. It was a lot of fun experience.
Did you have any activities then that was the precursor of what you're doing now, like in engineering and being a technical field, or was there any trace?
Software gigs, like computers.
You were playing with computers then?
Yeah.
He's a hacker. He's a better.
He's a hacker, and he's better.
Yeah.
Okay.
No,
at some point, we have to discover you.
I stayed out of trouble, but yeah.
And you both went to Sharif.
Yep.
Did you take the concours?
Yep.
Both of you? What are your rankings in concours?
Mine was not that.
You're not done.
142, I think.
What was it, 400?
142.
142. He said modestly, it's not that good.
34.
34, and he is better. So this one you came on top. Some people fault me.
One multiple choice.
Say it again?
One multiple choice probably here or there.
Way more.
That is true. Now, I want to mention something. Somebody approached me and said, you asked people's concours ranking. And they said it like faulting me that I am judging people by their ranking and all that. I want to assure you I'm not doing that to judge, because as you said, as Behnam said, one multiple choice could be like 50 to 100 that can change your score. And besides, if you compare yourself with 1 million or so people behind you, a couple of tens of people here and there doesn't make that much of a difference. Believe me, I've been there, I know that. So in Sharif, you work together as well? Or did you have a common life together? Did you take courses together?
He was 1 year ahead of me.
There we go again.
Yeah. But yeah, we had some classes together, I think, yeah. He was the smart one, so he always took classes with me.
So you were better at basketball and he was the smart one.
Guy, yeah.
Okay, all right.
He's also more good looking.
All right, so at some point your paths cross again. When did you just join together, or were in the same area after you bifurcated? You went to CMU and you went to UCLA. So they were separate from, were you in touch with each other then?
Yeah, but we've never actually worked in the same company together. So it's interesting that we have actually worked in ad tech or recommender systems a lot, but we've actually never worked in the same company. But but we catch up a lot because we're in the same field. We know a lot of common people.
I think 2004 or 5 was when you came to the Bay Area, right? Or 6 with Netsier.
2007.
2007. So yeah,
when did you come to?
2001.
2001. Okay.
Yeah. So he called me up and said, okay, yeah, I have this company. I came here. So I looked at your company a little bit, worked it together. He had the problem of like figuring out what ad tags are on a website, and he said like, oh yeah, can you write a program to do this for me? And I did it for him while I was at advertising.com back in the. He said he's gonna pay me. He never paid me, but.
So paid in Bitcoin.
So you've done many different things, but right now you're both experts in online advertising. Can you walk us through what is the difference? What happens when I go online and click on something or you display an ad for me? What are the sequence of the things that happen?
Yeah, so when you go to a website or an app or you watch a video, first thing is that a bid request or request comes to our servers, and in that moment, some information about your profile and your context, your history, etc., gets shared with the server, and then the server goes and processes hundreds of thousands of ads that can be eligible to be shown to you.
So something about me gets shared. What is it? Typically, what is it? Like 2 in the morning, I'm looking at this video.
It depends on the company. What company has access to what kind of data? For example, at Amazon, we have some signals about like if we recognize you, you have your user history, and we have your videos you have watched, what items you have looked at, what you have purchased. So all of that is part of your profile if you recognize it.
And these are in cookies, or is it outside independent companies managing those information about me, or both?
It's both, and depends on where you are. So if you are on Amazon.com or you're watching a Prime Video, for example, we have more information from you. And then typically, cookies came and became very popular, but as you know, the platforms are now blocking cookies, so you can't track users across different platforms anymore. Behnam, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, I think one way to think about advertising is the two-sided marketplace. On one side, you want to show something to the user that they see value. On the other side, you want to show something that the advertiser gets value from it. And the whole art of it, what do you show that satisfies both? Right? I can show something relevant to you, but not get paid as much for it. And on the other hand, I can show something to you that the advertiser pays a lot, but it might not be very relevant to the user. Now, the challenges with the compliance and recent regulation is that how do you do that in a way that is still users feel that they trust that we use their data in a kind of right way, and they have control that we lose the data that we know about them. So a lot of the kind of recent regulations about trust and control of the users.
So I'm a little bit confused. Is it trusting the advertisement or trusting the content? You don't mess around with the content, do you?
Trusting the data. How do we handle the data that we have about the users?
How do you handle data? Okay. So, and Apple has done something recently that has limited you. How does that work? What is that?
Yeah, so Apple and other platforms, they block third-party tracking. So, for example, if you are on an application and then you go to another application and you want to share data between the two, the platforms don't have access to data that shares between those two applications. For example, if you go to Nike, browse an item, and that cookie gets tracked within the Nike website, and then you go to another platform where you see ads, then the ad platform won't have access to this data shared between the different applications or websites. And Apple has done it on the Safari browser and on the operating system, the iOS, and Google is planning to follow suit to do the same thing on Chrome and the operating system and Android.
And that makes your job more difficult.
Yeah.
And you don't like it.
No.
So why do people do that?
It's for users' privacy and protecting users.
You want to add something to it, yeah?
Yeah, when Apple tried to do that, Meta tried to make make a good argument, which I think was a good argument, that this is actually hurtful for small businesses, and this actually gives advantages to the big business. I think Apple does it for multiple reasons. One of them is the kind of business competitive advantage they have, right, versus the other big companies. So I don't think they're doing necessarily that for the sake of users' trust.
It's not their good.
This is my personal opinion,
Yeah.
that in compliance and regulations and laws, user kind of benefit is not necessarily the ultimate reason why things happen. I don't know how many people are getting benefit from clicking on I accept this cookie on every website that they go. So I think this is about which company has leverage where and where they can squeeze other companies. And in my opinion, actually, a lot of these regulations at the end of the day benefit more bigger companies. Because now Meta has so much data using machine learning, they can predict and do a lot of things that you wouldn't be able to do. But if I had a startup in advertising now, I would have been destroyed because I don't have all of that data to be able to do it, right? What Meta is doing. So
I thought you can buy it from Meta, or for a price Meta allows you to access the segment of a population you're targeting your ads to, no?
you can buy from them,
Yeah.
right? But you
Well,
basically
there's a price,
yeah, you can basically need to do advertising on their side.
So next question is, how is product cycle different from ads, for ads versus consumer products?
Yeah, I can start. So I've worked mostly in ads for the past 20 years, so I can speak more about advertising, but I've also worked at Facebook working on consumer products to balance the value of ads versus the value that gets to the users. So I think, I mean, there's a lot of similarity between them. So if you think about both, you want to grow your users, more of the consumer-based growth. So in terms of consumer products, you want to have a growth mentality, work on like metrics where you acquire users, you want to retain them, and then you get them value for retention of the user and bring them back to the platform. In the advertising business, we're dealing with growing advertiser base. So it's a whole new different dimension. And also into the product life cycle, it's usually longer. You look at and you do a lot more customer interviews, what they call it at Amazon, voice of customers. So we do a lot of sessions with customers, figuring out what are the gaps in the product platform that we have, and we build for them while maintaining user trust and user functionality.
I think you covered most of it. A few others that I would add is, in my opinion, ad is easier in terms of there's clear metrics. You need to move revenue, you need to improve performance of advertisers, so it's very clear cut, but it's a lot more intense. If you miss it, the company's missing it, you need to, especially if you're a public company, you're hitting every single thing. Yeah. Consumer, in my opinion, is a little bit more fun, but also it's more kind of exploratory. You cannot come up with idea of YouTube or idea of Instagram. You can sit here, you can use any of the frameworks, but at the end of the day, you need to look at user needs, what users want, and then build something, and sometimes it works, sometimes it others. To me, consumer product development is a lot more kind of, you need to be in touch with consumer needs, and it needs to be more creative, and to be honest, there's more kind of, there are more unknowns. So usually the companies that do well is that they try a lot of things. That's why Meta is very good at kind of online thing. Either they copy or iterate, or they come up with things.
So one thing which is changing because of generative AI, and I alluded to it, is in the split second of that you have to decide what to show, what advertisement to show. If you had a lot more processing power and admittedly more data, you would be able to have a knockout advertisement that the user is, dead on the target for. So that would be one of my guesses for generative AI being able to provide the benefits for the advertising companies and the platforms. What are the others, or is this the only one, just in an aggrandized way?
Yeah, I think that's it. Yeah, and you know, traditionally, a lot of advertising has been on context, like in context of your search or what websites you're viewing at this point or what app you're using. With the introduction of cookies and history of users, you know, obviously this data become a lot more richer, right? So we do a lot more predictions. And, you know, the advertising is based on predictions in general, as you mentioned, to pick the best ad for that user. So we build a lot of predictive audiences that are tailored to either a specific action the user has taken. For example, we, you know, at Amazon, we know that like people change their shipping addresses, and we look at what they buy before shipping address, changing the shipping address. So we know that they move at some point in time, and then we look at the behavior before moving, and we predict the user is going to move, right? There's like a famous, you know, example of a Target ad that knew that you know, person was pregnant before their family knew that they're pregnant, right?
Yes. Could be dangerous sometimes.
Yeah, you probably have seen that. So we get all these signals from advertisers. Let's say, you know, State Farm, and State Farm gives us the list of all of their users who have requested an estimate for insurance, for example. And that goes to our system and look at all the history of those users, everything that we know about the users, what they have done, and we predict users who are like those users. So we build an audience for the State Farm using AI that predicts the likelihood of these new users who we don't know anything about them and haven't really requested an estimate from State Farm. And then we target State Farm as those users. For each user, again, a lot of advertisers compete for that moment, and we calculate the scores based on these probabilities.
So if you had a lot of power, a lot of these B200 boxes and infinite amount of power, and data transmission was no problem to them, and the communication lines, there were no problem to them. What could you create? What would be the ultimate that we would long for, or you would long for? Behnam.
So a few things that I would add. So most of the AI kind of compute today is recommender systems. The reason why NVIDIA stock has gone up is not yet because of ChatGPT and kind of generative applications. Yes. A lot of it is because model training and inference is moving to GPUs, yes, where it was CPU before. And it's because even recommender systems have adopted transformer architecture. So it's an architecture that instead of us kind of feeding typical features, we actually feed individual actions of users. So why I said that is, so that's why you see the GPU, and that's why you saw that, you know, Meta bought, genius of Mark Zuckerberg was that they bought a lot of that before kind of the rush to it from NVIDIA. Now, imagine if that on the recommender system today, you go to a website and you say, give me a hotel, or you go to advertising and say, give me the best ad, or you go to Twitter and say, give me the best feed, or you go to Instagram and they show you the best kind of content from the reels. All of them are showing you best content given certain things. Now, imagine a world that basically what is fed into that model is every single thing you've done.
That's right? Scary.
Yeah. So the GPT was feeding to a model every single written human kind of information, and now there's some kind of leaks that they even transcribe some YouTube video things and kind of things like that. They are now going beyond written human content. They're going around verbal. Can we have transcript of conversation, things like that? How can we get
videos? Yes.
Yeah, content of knowledge around humanity and feed it to a big language model? The same thing holds true for a recommender system. Can I just look at everything you did? Now, what can I do with it is that you want to know what you want to have for dinner, as we just discussed. It will know better than you or your wife what you would like for dinner tonight. That you would like abgusht, or you would like steak, right? Now, take that to every single thing, right? And it becomes interesting, but it's scary all at the same time.
Let's take the scary route and discover.
I saw that you liked it a lot.
You know, the dark side of targeted advertising. obviously the privacy issues. Reminds me of the dystopian novels, 1984, Brave New World, or most recently, The Minority Report. I get creeped out if the system knows more about me than I think I do. How can we avoid that creep factor and still have a civil society? How can I erase some of my information, some of the things you know about me?
So generally, you have every platform gives you tools to delete your data. So it's like user is generally in control. We do know a lot about you, and a lot more than probably that you think that we know. Part of my team is just their mission is just to generate, collect that data from every action that you do in a privacy. So, but we have guardrails around it. So, for example, certain categories like healthcare, for example, they're excluded from our data collection. So we automatically know the sensitive areas, and we exclude them from data collection. To answer your previous question about what is ideal in terms of if you have infinite computing power, is really that you see ads currently that are irrelevant to you, right? Ideal situation is that you see that all ads are relevant to you. 100% of ads that you see, you want to click on them, you want to click and buy something on those ads. And I think if we had infinite power, we'd probably be in that situation. We reduce number of ads, but those ads will be more and more
That is something I cannot totally agree with you, Ahmad, because if an ad is so effective that I'm defenseless, I mean, I really need this, I really click on it whether or not I need it because it comes up with this sort of a scheme that convinces me, that borders on manipulation. And I don't know how to separate these two. I am worried about the world that we're moving in, that we give too much power to entities whose motivations are not for the betterment of human being, but for profit. I have respect that companies have to make profit and they have to have a business, but there's got to be some sort of a serious guardrails, including my ability to be to erase some of this information that you have. There's this book by this Columbia professor, Tim Wu. I don't know whether you're familiar with it, Attention Merchants. He has this thesis that between this triangle, the users, the platforms, and the advertisers pay for the advertisement to be played, to be displayed to the users, and they get their money back because hopefully, I buy more cars, I buy more of their services, and you get paid by the advertisers to provide that service. But I don't get paid, and in fact, I pay for your services. I am the product. There are some guardrails. European countries have GDPR, and California has some guardrails. But what do you see this increased power because of the work that NVIDIA is, the power that NVIDIA is providing for you, and the consumer who are essentially defenseless as your company is using more and more of these? How should we create a balance between these two that I would not be creeped out or I would not feel that I'm being manipulated?
Yeah, so just to repeat that, those guardrails exist, so you're in control of your data. It's very important to know that the whole advertising ecosystem has been around for a long time, and these publishers need to get paid, right? Generally.
Yeah.
So you will see advertising regardless, right? We have to have ads in newspapers, on TV, on websites and apps. The point that I was raising is that we want those ads to be more relevant to you. So instead of you seeing a lipstick ad that you probably won't buy, then
which is good because then I don't have to spend.
Exactly right. Then we suggest something that you probably will buy, but you will need it. But we encourage you with a deal to buy that. And our mission is not necessarily to make money for our companies. We want to make advertisers bring value to advertisers, so they invest more in advertising. So we make the publishing ecosystem better, and then the whole life cycle continues.
I think we touched into 4 or 5 things here, which each of them probably needs a few hours. One, you're right. Advertising supported businesses, by definition, they're not aligned completely with the consumer needs. They might align themselves with consumer wants, which can be, hey, I want to, like that addiction. And that's why when Elon took over Twitter, he really pushed into whether he can kind of have non-advertising sources, because he felt that he, both from where he wanted to take the platform and also for the users, that's necessary. By definition, you'll never be the right. And that's why I like that kind of approach. That's not. The second one is companies are looking at my data and kind of doing things with it. I don't think there's, in the future world, there's going to be a way around it. Yes, we have regulations on any of these apps. You can delete anything we know about you. Meta has it, Google has it, Pinterest has it, Twitter has it. But in this world, there's so many things, more and more are going to collect things from you. Kind of going
we
with
gotta
that,
give up.
going with that thing of, hey, I'm going to be this kind of anonymous thing going around. I think it's a good discussion to have, whether we allow people to have few different digital entities that they can, the only thing I can see is that you reset yourself, right? You can be A and B.
Or have avatars with zero information
Yeah.
or conflicting information.
So that's on that one. In terms of, yes, it is true. We but now in Europe, the way Meta is trying to get around the regulations of Europe is that given an option for users to pay for Meta
their
and have
information
no
to be
ads,
used. Yeah.
or you actually have personalized ads, right? Because Europe made it that you cannot opt in by default users for personalization. So that's the trick they use. They know not that many people want to pay. So to your question, would you be willing to pay $5 a month for Pinterest, $10 for Instagram? I don't know the ARPU of...
But not be manipulated into buying something that
and then
you
we will
you
leave
think
you
I-
alone, will not manipulate you, right?
Okay.
And then $5 for LinkedIn, $20 for Facebook, right? Because
At least
now
there's a choice there,
advertising, ARPU is pretty high. I don't remember Meta's ARPU, but revenue per user per year is not that low. If you want to, you might want to pay it, but that person that has minimum wage job at McDonald's doesn't want to pay $10 to. So it's an interesting value transition that you have the buying power of your daily things. Advertisers want that. Advertisers are subsidizing your consumption of certain products. It's an indirect value transaction. Like they could have given you a discount for McDonald's and not pay Meta and come back. But I don't think that's a world that we can transition to that easily.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your insightful answer. I have one last question before I open the floor to people. Hopefully you have some questions. And this could be a controversial one between you two. I'm sorry if I bring it in at the time that you guys may disagree with each other. Why Shaquille O'Neal is the greatest player of all times?
I think he is. Yeah, I was a big fan of Shaq when I was in high school. I think that's probably.
And Behnam,
what do you
you
think?
agree with this?
I would go with LeBron.
LeBron? Yeah.
I'm a Steph fan, but LeBron is the best.
How long have you guys had this discussion?
I don't know, but I think the
Don't say
bigger
that.
thing is that you even had your email had some Shaq something.
Yeah,
in it,
Shaq. And I collected all the posters of Shaq. I had like a book.
So you're a
collector,
fan,
yeah,
you're a
big
real
Shaq,
fanatic, yes.
Jersey and everything, yeah. And we used to play basketball together and watch basketball, the Warriors games. Behnam had a good season pass, front row seats. So I used to tag along with him.
So LeBron is your favorite.
Right now, Steph.
Steph.
Right now,
It's
Steph.
a-
Okay,
But you asked who is the greatest player of all time.
Oh, I see. I stand corrected.
Favorite is
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Thank you very
Thanks a
much
lot.
for taking the time
Thank
to
you.
be over here.
thank you.
Questions? We have hands raised over here. Can we help with the microphone? Two over there and then this gentleman over here. I'll walk with my iPhone.
Hi, my name is Ali Rostami, and the question that I'm going to ask you doesn't have anything to do with what I do. Sure, yeah. Unlike the first question that I asked tonight, which was exactly what I do, but from the perspective of a user, do you guys or anyone across your profession leverages any kind of like passive microphone data for advertisements? I'm pretty sure that everyone here has this question. Like, if you talk about something or discuss about something, and later on you see something coming up.
It's a common question. I think a lot of the ads that you see sometimes is like just by chance, and maybe there's some other factors going into.
Just 1 second. Just 1 second. Excuse me, people over there. If you want to talk, it would be very distracting to us. Please be respectful of the speaker, and take your conversation outside. You want me to name names? Honey John, can you go outside, please? If you want. Okay, please go ahead. Yes.
So Pinterest doesn't, but maybe that's why our ads are not as effective as Meta. Meta is accused of that. I don't know the answer. But to be honest, if you really know every click, everything that the user has done, Meta's done shady things like, you know, looking at your contact list, reading your text, like, you know, what TikTok does is downloads. Yeah, they look at VPN to look at the, they used to have, I think they bought a company that would let you know what are the other apps in the thing.
Yes,
TikTok, when you give it permission, it actually goes through and downloads all of your photos. And from that, figures out, hey, you're a dog person. So there might be so many places that they get your info. I don't know whether Mike thing necessarily is the one. But I think the broader thing is that, yes, all of these companies look for every single information they can know about you, visually, verbally, anything. And then on one hand, it can look like good magic. Suddenly you see that ad or that piece of content, that funny video that you're like, oh, this is really hit the spot. Or it can be creepy that, hey, how the hell do they know that I like this type of puppies?
Sure. Elham Moore, I'm the president and CEO of Keep Children in School Foundation, a nonprofit in LA focused on education in Iran. The question that I have is, sometimes I feel there is a trust that comes with a sense of familiarity. Like if I see an ad that is not maybe necessarily relevant to me, but if I see it 5 times in a month, then maybe the 4th time I click on it, maybe the 5th, maybe the 10th time I actually buy it. Is there something like that you target people like or groups based on, I don't know, some categorization that may come up in your algorithms, and then create a sense of trust or some need just by repeating it, so that people, you know, by seeing it a lot, feel that they want it rather than just target it, just like you mentioned?
I can start. Yeah. So yeah, that concept exists. You know, obviously we optimize always with advertiser and user. We optimize based on combinations. In some brands, you want to show them more and more advertising or repeated advertising to the user, and some brands are not as effective if you repeat to the user. And too much repetition is also bad, as you know. There's like settings. There's a standard setting called frequency capping, where you can apply as an advertiser to not show ads too repeatedly to the user. And advertisers have those knobs too, so they constantly play with the setting to figure out what the optimal number of ads per user is.
For performance advertising, the answer is yes and no. The answer is no, because more and more you remove all of these things, let the model figure it out. Yes, because if you, by repeating it, you don't go and buy, the model learns it and will do it if enough plays. So that's why I think, say, John was mentioning something that more and more, really the thing becomes, some people build chips that you can feed everything to it and build these huge models, and then some people find ways of knowing what everybody does and then feed it to that model and then tell that model that I want this to happen. I want the person to click. I want the person to buy. I want the person to do X. And then it will find the optimum thing. And that optimum thing is not really a heuristic or something that you would explain.
Yeah, thank you very much. I have a question because money, Rezaei, I'm new here in California. I think everybody knows it, yeah. You are clever enough. You are managing big teams, I think. but mostly we are talking about startups here. For sure, you had some ideas in your mind to having startups. But I want to see which stops you to do it, or which motivation keeps you to work with big companies instead of doing your own startup. Yeah.
I can go first. Startup was my first job, so I started a company out of UCLA. I did it for 10 years. The closest thing I can explain to somebody that hasn't done it is like, it's like parenting, right? When you have kids, it's a lot of fun, but it's also very hard. So I had most fun years of my life doing that, but also I had the hardest years of my life. I was working my ass off. There were days that, you know, we wouldn't have money to pay our employees next week, and I had to kind of bear the kind of bear that with me. So it was a lot of fun, but it was very intense. The nice thing about working at a bigger company is that the things that you do, you see bigger impact. You have steady source of income. If and the risk and reward portfolio is very different. So I did a company for 10 years, sold it, but not for a big amount that would help me retire. I tried another one, couldn't raise money, and then I went to Twitter, worked for Twitter for 6 years. I would go back, and actually right now is a good time. I think we had some good presentations of basic applications of AI. I think this is one of those a Pandora moment. There's if you're a fan of ballet, there's a ballet in San Francisco called Pandora's Box or Pandora, which I think they're bringing back again. It basically is a new twist of the Pandora's Box mythology. This is one of those moments. And I think it's a good moment to do startups, but goes back into where you're in your life. You know, I have a 2.5 years old and 5.5 years old, and you know, have certain burn rate, things like that. So that's the reason for me, but it would be a good time to do it. But also, I mean, you need to make sure you do it right. You need to make sure that you, there's a lot of things that go with that. So that would be my reason for it.
Yeah, so, yeah, you covered part of my answer, but yeah, so I generally treat my team as like a startup within the big company too. So it's like I get that satisfaction of building things fast. And you know, every time I was at Google, I had a small team. You know, built a lot of things and grew it to multi-billion dollars. And you know, Instagram, when I joined, basically there's no advertising on Instagram. I was hired to build advertising, and I was like felt like a startup within a bigger back in the day. Even Instagram was small. But and then even at Amazon, I mean, my team is kind of like smaller size compared to the entire Amazon business, but like we are growing really fast there. Having said that, I may go to do a startup at some point. I mean, it's just like I'm not against it. I think it's just that a lot of data that exists in Amazon and you know, my experience, you know, really matches with using that data, building bigger products, especially at Amazon and in other companies had a lot of user base. So my expertise is generally like when you have like a big user base and you want to monetize and generate revenue, you know, I come in and help there. Yeah.
One more thing I would add is that if you do a startup, you should really do it because you love that idea, you love doing that. Don't do it for the money, because right now, being one of those big companies in the next few years, you probably are going to make more money. Expected outcome that you will have is a lot more. If you work for NVIDIA, Apple, Google, any of them, you pick it, you probably are going to make more money, expected money, than doing startups. So if you really have that fire in the belly, is you're just enjoying it and you want to take that risk.
Are you familiar with Advertising Research Foundation? Oh, I'm Dr. K.R.S. Murthy. I have done foundational work in advertising, and I have reviewed who's who authors of books. There is what's called Advertising Research Foundation. And if you are familiar with it, you know, talk about it, because a lot of people don't seem to normally know that I come across how it is done. There are different aspects of advertising metrics. Yeah, that was my question.
No, I'm not familiar with it.
Yeah, I'm not familiar either. Sorry. Yeah.
My name is Rasul Askuyi, and he's going to say your affiliation. My affiliation is I was classmate with Saeed at Society of Iranian Professionals in 1980s. So that's how old he is. But anyhow, I want to follow up on that scary path and where Saeed was going, and we talked about some regulations. What in terms of you put some examples of recent cookies that users have to do, so on and so forth. But those are very primitives. With with the AI and the large language model being trained today, most of these models have been trained over the last years, 5, 8 years. So it's already too late. They have picked up a lot of information that we were not at liberty to share. Worse than that, and there is a lawsuit pending, as I understand, against Microsoft, that GitHub has been basically been trained by all the sources of companies, code. Now imagine that, all that proprietary information, but then this is exactly the question. So when you talk about the privacy and protection, given the data, what the data we have in the cloud, all of our private cloud data structures, eventually or as is, a lot of these being basically scanned for training. So what happens? Where do we go in the future?
I'll share two perspectives. The one I'm more worried about is that a lot of these data are now behind walled gardens, and the only ones that can do it are Meta and Googles of the world. So startups cannot do that. That's previously it was open web, right? So that's the thing that actually now you see Twitter, like Elon, the first thing he did, he asked us to turn off all the access to Twitter content APIs. Reddit has now done it, like they do. So there's that aspect of who can look at what you're doing, but also I actually think, I wish it was more possible that we were making data more available for others so that it actually sparked more competition. I think now these days, there's no way somebody can be the next Google, because Google was based on open web. They could crawl the whole web. So that's one thing. On the doomsday, I'm less concerned about AIs learning the way I think and helping me. I'm more concerned around whether these big companies are investing more in improving human productivity versus replacing humans, right? In the human history, a lot of times is about increasing productivity of humans, and a lot of the innovation has helped with that. And I think you need to think about whether this AI is going to turn each of us into something that we can be even more effective and more productive versus it replacing us. And I think the technologies we develop and the way these big companies, they're going to be the ones who decide on that. Like, it's going to depend a lot of how the society will look like in the next few years. One more thing I would add is that Sam Altman is a good salesman. Last week, he had this kind of conference for all the kind of customers of OpenAI. He opened it up with something like this. Somebody that's born today will live in a world that AI has always been smarter than them. Because the baby, he basically claims the baby that is born now, because the baby has less kind of cognitive recognition. He's basically claiming the speed that these AIs are going to improve in the next few years is going to be faster than the growth of this baby. That to me is the more scary thing, and whether that baby, what role he will have in society and how he's going to interact with that AI, then, okay, who owns my data and kind of what does with it, and whether these technologies, there are ways that we can have more competition and now not these 5 big companies that is going to double their market.
Yeah, I just want to add one thing to it, and I agree with Behnam, is that data that we have that, the open web or public data, I want to separate it from personal data. And a lot of the open data just makes it a level playing field with everyone. So everyone is like in the same position. They can use it and they can train their models. But then when it comes to your personal data, that's the area that we take it very seriously and make sure that we protect that data. This new concept of clean rooms is an important concept that has come up. So as a third-party entity, when you have access to everyone's data, let's say Experian, for example, we know that what people buy or people are interested in, they upload that data into Clean Room, which is a third-party area where you can join that third-party data with advertiser data. Then the Clean Room makes that join possible. Data doesn't leave the Clean Room and stays in a safe environment where there's no possible chance of leaking. So that's what the investments are now in the data privacy field. Yeah.
And our last question goes to my friend Behnam, who runs about 100 miles a week, my hero in running.
Thank you.
Nice
Thank you
name.
thank you very much for engaging and interesting conversation. I'm Behnam Kamrani. I'm a mechanical engineer and nowadays founder of a fitness app. It's called On Run. It's an easy way to find group activities and group runs and showcase your past race results. My question is, you mentioned that a lot of data is saved by users, from users and your servers. I was just curious how easy it is for, say, employees to access those data. Can you search, say, by someone's name? I mean, like, get those information out, like, say, for someone that works for in your team or something like that, or how is easy to access those information?
I can answer Pinterest, and then probably similar to most tech companies. A lot of them have made big investments in this area. A lot of the data is privacy by design, so nobody can access and read and decipher any of the data. So you just need to be that user to be able to access that data. So even the data access at aggregate, we are very careful that, hey, at aggregate, is it possible to kind of play it back and see whether you can find that particular user? The example that Ahmad made, that when things go into Clean Room or other places, there's a lot of work that is done so that you cannot really find individuals. And by design, the systems are such that you cannot do that. There might be cases for certain things like trust and safety or legal or other things, but they have a lot of checks and balances. And you need to get a lot of approvals, like, things like that, because somebody might need to look at something to know whether this is child porn or not. So there are those systems in place, but they have a lot of kind of checks and balances. So I will be very surprised in any of these big companies a random employee can access kind of user data.
Yeah, I mean, trust and safety is a big use case there. Again, also depends on company maturity, and more they take it seriously. When I was at Google, for example, if you knew someone like Gmail address, for certain use cases, you could log in and see Gmail, but like these activities get logged. Same thing for Facebook. If you have like someone's Facebook ID and you want to track for certain troubleshooting or debugging use cases, you could. But again, these activities get logged, and then it's when you go to Facebook or you get employed there, if you use it for like personal purposes or things that are not related to your work, it's very consequences are severe. You basically get fired. So there are use cases for it, but like not that common.
You guys all noticed that our last questioner inserted a little advertisement about his business, didn't they? True to form. Thank you for doing that. Well, on behalf of the AmidiGroup, Plug and Play, Persian Tech Network, and the Iranian community, I would like to thank you for spending the time with us and answering our questions. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Thank you so much for hosting us.
I take them